Warpugs, seals are good, has changed the way I will ever look at Anakin Skywalker. I used to look at him as a confused youth, a easy manipulated and tormented soul, but now I can only see him like this, and this is evidenced by the fact that every single time I see anything Star Wars, I immediately start thinking about dichotomy and the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. The tale. Yes. Guys, seals are good. I swear this guy's got he's got comedic timing down so pat it's not even funny. We're gonna jump right into this. This was requested during the Shenanigan stream. It's become kind of like a staple of the Shenanigan stream every once in a while. Every single time that something from Seals Are Good gets put out, I'm gonna get it thrown right in my face. But this right here, this was a little bit too long for the Shenanigan stream. I said I would get to it. Here I am getting to it. I don't think the system works. Anakin's critique of democracy. Oh boy, here we go. I just hope that Anakin can get through it and still have a relationship after this, because frankly, I don't think it's going to work, and I'm pretty sure Mace Windu's going to come in and beat the hell out of him at some point, and he probably will deserve it. I'm just saying, here we go.
I don't think the system works.
How would you have it work?
What an excellent question, and one which...
It's already started. Warpugs, make sure you like and subscribe. All the Seals Good links are going to be in the description down below. Here we go.
Coincidentally, I have put some light thought into of late.
Okay.
Allow me to briefly summarize a very high-level overview of how I believe the system should work.
Oh,
Okay.
Anakin, you know you can go as deep as you want to with me.
Duly noted. But perhaps we can go deeper another time.
Oh my
Regardless,
God.
First
Come
question
on,
one
man.
must ask oneself is, what is the core of good governance? I propose there are 4 pillars, which our present system sorely lacks. Twi'lek thinker Thomas Schaub's outlined that the first priority of government was to avoid the horrors of violence and war. It was, he argued, a dichotomy between the state of nature prior to setting up a government wherein one would live one's life sans any security, bar that which you yourself can bring with your own strength, and that of a common power,
like this?
keeping the peace internally and protecting against foreign invasion.
I have a body part that'd be open to foreign invasion.
Ashab's advancing the work of Pla'ado outlines the notion of a contract wherein individuals would give up some natural freedoms in exchange for a measure of security granted them by the state. The Hutt thinker Locke, writing after Thomas Schaub's, agreed with the latter's arguments, introducing tacit consent, whereby one is implicitly agreeing to the authority of the government by living within a state, even for a short time.
Okay, I think I get the gist. We can go do other things now.
It is important to note this description of government has been heavily critiqued by the Rhodian thinker David Huume. He points out that the original establishment of states was formed by violence and submitted to only by necessity. He goes further, noting that the notion of tacit consent only makes sense against a background of free choice.
I think
You have her tacit consent, Anakin. Let's go.
we should retire to my rooms.
Why? We're both so young. I plan to work until I die.
Oh,
No,
God.
Returning to our
Anakin, that's
prior
not what I meant.
conversation, does a poor artisan deep within Alderaan have the ability to simply leave the Republic? With what credits could they do so? Huum's point was that we do not need contract theory to ground our obligation to respect the state's authority. It is common sense society would collapse without such respect. Of course, this was but an interesting side tangent.
Okay.
The minutiae of contract theory are very intriguing, and we can perhaps engage with it another time.
Good.
However, the core point I was attempting to communicate was that government is intended to keep the peace. Yet, what do we see in the Republic? The rumblings of a civil war, fermented by planets attempting to freely leave the Republic, which, as an addendum to our previous interesting side tangent, contract theory suggests they should be able to do, yet they struggle.
Okay.
Alas, I fear peace is not something this present system offers us, despite it being a core pillar of a good government.
You're not picking up what I'm putting down.
No, you're
Drop
not.
something?
Only a few dozen hints.
Next, we must turn our attention to another core aspect of what I believe is crucial for any government to offer its
Oh
citizens.
my God.
Freedom. Now, we must be precise in what we mean by freedom, after all, as argued by Ashab's total freedom. without government means a freedom to die.
Oh my
Perhaps through
god.
exposure to the elements. Perhaps at the claws of a wampa.
You say it almost like those would be threats you'd face back to back.
Could you imagine?
Vividly. I like to imagine it'd be on the ice planet Hoth. Perhaps I'd be rebelling against a cruel and oppressive empire.
No one's ever engaged with my hypothetical before. Anyway, philosophy, consider therefore the notion argued by the Wookiee philosopher Isaibalin. There are two basic types of freedom, negative and positive. Negative freedom is, fundamentally, the freedom from interference. For example, I have a right to tell anyone and everyone about how sand is coarse and rough and irritating, and that it gets everywhere without Master Eathcoth beating me up and stealing my lunch money.
Does that happen often?
Anyway,
It happens.
philosophy. It's worth noting that not all restrictions on one's possible choices are infringements on negative freedoms. If one wished to do something unnatural,
My
shooting
God.
lightning from their fingies,
Fingies.
that's just because that's what my mother called them when I was younger. So I've kept up the habit. In a way, it feels like keeping a small piece of her with me.
Oh my god.
Especially because when I asked if we could free her from the slavery we left her in, I was told no. Well, actually, Yoda looked me up and down, said slavery was a skill issue, then walked off. But I took it as a no.
We should go save her. Or check in on her, at least.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure she's fine. Besides, Jedi aren't supposed to have attachments.
No attachments? But what about love?
I asked Yoda about love once. He just told me that women only want alimony and child support.
Yoda being based as usual.
And said, MGTOW for life. Threw a sofa at me. Anyway, one's inability...
I didn't know Yoda was so based.
to do the unnatural of shooting lightning from their fingies doesn't mean their freedom is being impinged.
You say it's unnatural, but what about Master Plo Koon's electric judgment?
That's just a legend.
How can you have a legend about someone who isn't dead? Couldn't we just ask him?
Positive freedom is the freedom to do something rather than the freedom from interference. Returning to our example of Naboo, just because the Republic does not forbid one from leaving the planet, that does not mean one can. After all, one may not have the credits to do so.
Or one may be blockaded by the Trade Federation.
We've arrived at another core failing of the Republic. Consider the invasion of Naboo. The Trade Federation blockaded the planet, and if they had their way, we would still be restrained, while the Trade Federation inflicted atrocities. The Republic fails to secure freedoms for its citizens, both positive and negative. Those on Naboo were not free from the harm inflicted by the blockade, nor were they enabled to live their best lives.
Are you living your best life, Anakin?
I'm not sure. Last week, Master Obi-Wan told me.
Force above, Anakin! How many times have I told you not to turn your back on me while I'm talking to you? It makes me so mad I could just hurl myself out of the window!
He survived, but it gives one pause for thought. What if Jedi keep jumping out of windows around me? Whatever. I'll burn that bridge when I come to it. We must, therefore...
Foreshadowing.
Add another pillar to our understanding of good governance. An appropriate balance of positive and negative freedoms. Or more simply, and thus more fittingly, with our other identified pillar.
Okay.
Freedom.
Interesting.
Yes.
Please, continue.
You actually like listening to me?
Of
No.
course. I was a bit distracted at first, but I think you're as engaging as you are handsome.
I'm sorry. The Jedi never taught me how to respond to positive feedback. Well, one time Master Windu gave me a compliment. He told me he was glad to finally see my lily-white ass. But I later learned that was sarcasm. Next,
I can't with this guy.
let's consider the flaws of democracy, identified by the Bith thinker Plato.
Plato, I
He
love
claimed
it.
in Book 6 of his work, Republic, that democracy is inferior to other forms of government, broadly on the grounds that democracy is necessarily hostile to the expertise required to appropriately govern societies.
it's so strange that if you look at them on paper, democracy is by far the most inefficient form of governance, period. It's just absolutely inefficient. Nothing can get done. It is the worst. And you take a look at some of the best forms of governance on paper, and they're utter, like, and highly efficient, takes care of the society, everything like that. Put them in practice, however, and it's an utter train wreck. The entire thing is inverted because of human nature. Let's just say it truthfully, because of human nature.
He highlights that the structure of democracies result in those who are expert in winning elections and nothing else are those who will come to dominate the democratic scene. After all, democracy emphasizes this expertise at the expense of expertise in solid governance. Ultimately, Plato argues the state will become victim to poorly thought out ideas that demagogues use to help themselves win office, and the state will end up floundering.
You highlight Plato's criticism of elected leaders, but what about Supreme Chancellor Palpatine? He's been very proficient. And he was elected fairly.
I'm sure even Plato would agree he is a rare exception. Sure, Palpatine collects Sith artifacts, wears Sith robes, and is always cackling to himself when he thinks no one is looking, but he's got a wonderful sense of humor, and the only thing he loves more than the arts is the Republic. However, Palpatine is but one man. He could easily end up falling down a seemingly bottomless pit or struck by lightning. And what then? Back to the array of demagogues? One is forced to ask oneself, is this just? Is it right that the proverbial ship of state will be thrown and tossed as endless waves of captains whose only qualification is that they are good at winning the office of captain, play at steering the ship, all the while it heads for the rocks? The answer, Plato argues, and it's one I'm inclined to agree with, is no.
No.
This is not just. It is both outrageous and unfair that countless innocent beings should be forced to suffer the ineffectual so-called leadership of such inept beings. Consider the former Supreme Chancellor Valorum, who was unable to act with any effectiveness on the blockade infringing Naboo's freedoms. A truly just society would be one where the ruler most suited to rule well is in charge. Therefore, another necessary pillar of state has been identified, that of justice.
But you're not actually against democracy, right? Just against demagogues seizing power.
Sure. Finally, consider the thoughts of the Chiss polymath, Myth Thrawn Narodo. In his writings, he will highlight he hasn't written it yet.
Really?
He will highlight that a galaxy unified under a singular leader and with a militaristic focus would be better able to defend against and respond faster to outside threats such as, hypothetically, an enemy living in the unknown regions of the galaxy seeking to enslave new clients to serve under their hegemon than the Republic. As the man himself will put it, multiple species with multiple viewpoints and racial philosophies simply cannot hold power together for long. The dominant voice must certainly be wise enough to adopt ideas and methods from its allies and member peoples. But there must be a dominant voice, or there is only chaos. Ultimately, that requires a centralized regime, or put simply, there is a lack of security. To summarize, in its existing political form, the Republic cannot offer peace, freedom, justice, and security. I like to call these the Skywalker Core 4,
Oh my God, go.
representing the pillars of good governance. Therefore, in my humble view, any reasonable political system should ensure it offers these core 4 elements as a baseline. That is one which would get my full support.
Interesting. Well, I certainly understand at least a high-level overview of where you're coming from. That being said, I felt your description of freedoms, positive and negative, glossed over some of the nuances and could have done with some expansion. Although, I'm more aligned with the Trandoshan thinker Shuenerihi, who argued all rights require both positive duties, such as protective or reparative actions, and negative duties, such as avoidant actions. So, I find the distinction somewhat redundant. Though, as I said before, I'd be happy to go deeper with you.
I believe you said something about retiring to your bedroom.
Anakin, you poor soul. Anakin, you poor soul. Aside from your talks about sand and coarseness and all this other kind of stuff, you must know. Oh my god. Seals Are Good has done such a good job of making Anakin so irredeemably a nerd. This is awesome. It is always so good. It is so good, guys. His comedic timing is just... it cannot be matched. It cannot be matched. I have been a fan of this guy since you first introduced me to him, and it continues to just accelerate, okay? The sheer fact of the matter is, it takes... he took one of the most base character traits of Anakin and made it an absolute meme. Warpugs, my brain hurts. My brain really does hurt. And for some reason, her expanding on her own theories finally got him to understand what she was offering all along. My brain hurts. This guy's comedic timing, I wish I had it. I have a sense of comedic timing on my own, but this guy's is just perfect. Just the right amount of time. Just the right amount of time to let something sink. Warpugs, all the Seals Are Good links Seals Are Good links are going to be in the description down below. If you're not, just like it says down here, subscribe, everybody. If you're not my subscriber, you are my enemy. Well, not really so much for me, but for him, yes. Warpugs, thank you for spending some time with the old man today. I'm going to head out from here. Links are going to be in the description below. I'll catch you guys next time. Leave a comment down below. I knew as soon as I saw dichotomy it was going to be there.